Good evening, freedom fighters and Alberta patriots. Great to be back with you again this beautiful fall evening. And I guess I want to start off with the question that's the question of all questions for many people right now, and that is can we save Alberta? Can we save Alberta from the tyranny of Ottawa? Can we save Alberta from the tyranny of Jason Kenney? Can we save Alberta from the tyranny of those who want to impose their values and beliefs and things on the individuals? And I say, yes, we can. We are faced with incredible problems, but I call them political problems. And the reason why I'm back involved in politics is because I don't see any other way forward that's peaceful and promising as I do solving this through political, I guess, political activism. And the ultimate political activism is in politics and political parties. And so welcome tonight to join myself, Paul Hinman, the leader of the Wild Rose Independence Party of Alberta. And our mission is to save Alberta, for Alberta to become a sovereign, free, prosperous country that's the absolute dream home of where we want to raise a family, make a living, enjoy life, and to be the envy of the world, or to be the light to the world. And I believe that we can do it. I don't know how many of you follow Danielle Smith, but she put out an email this Sunday, and basically says we're past the point of no return. She might be right. She was in my office back in 2005 when I introduced her to the Tytler cycle of freedom. And we've had many discussions over the years about it and where we are. And basically, she's coming to the conclusion, because of the forces that are out there, that we're now past the point of no return, and that we are going to go into political bondage. Our personal freedoms have been stripped away from us. It's just currently under an emergency act, but the ultimate point of no return, for me, is when we've got a passport system set up and mandated. And it's very scary. We're right on the side of the cliff, or we could say we're speeding down the highway, we're going too fast, and all of a sudden we see a sign, bridge out. And do we believe the sign? Do we hit the brakes? Or are we so busy and consumed with what we're doing that we don't even see the sign, and we just shoot off over the cliff and end all things? And for many, that's where they feel that we're at right now, is that we can't step on the brakes fast enough. But to me, that's no reason not to apply the brakes and do everything that we possibly can to save Alberta. The Wild Rose Independence Party has put out a couple of emails to our members in the last 2 weeks with this campaign, this road to independence. And we're basically calling it, asking the question to Albertans, can we save Alberta? And I don't know what's, I guess, David, I didn't ask you if you had it ready to be put up, but basically there's a couple of things here. And what we're feeling that we need to do with you and every Alberta freedom fighter and patriot is to join Wild Rose Nation, and to help us make other Albertans aware that there is a path forward, that we don't have to just drive off the cliff and into oblivion and into bondage, and to be the victim of a centralized government that tells us where we can go and what we can do. There's been lots of discussion about China's social credit, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But basically, that brochure is being printed. We're looking for volunteers. We want them to go to our website and to sign up. And David, do they go to wildrose.party or wildrosenation.com right now? Can you just put up where you want them to go on the screen, and so that they can sign up and want to help us distribute these brochures to people in their neighborhood to make them aware? But this is exciting times in the fact that there's an opportunity. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. And for many, if they haven't heard of the Wild Rose Independence Party, they don't know our policies and the idea that we're going to actually focus on the people, serve the people. It's not about over-regulating. It's not about overtaxing. Our healthcare system is being stressed to the max, but it's crazy. It's been 20 years and they've done very little to address the problems that we have in our healthcare system. And again, here in Lethbridge, we have 12 ICU beds. There's hundreds of thousands of people here in southern Alberta. And when we reach to the number of 12 ICU beds, we don't have the capacity for any more, and we need to declare a pandemic. I think this is a massive failure on the government and on our healthcare system, and it needs to be changed. And again, if you go to our website, wildrose.party, you'll see that there are some excellent policies there on how we want to fix healthcare, how we want to address the problems. We absolutely know that there's a shortage of frontline workers, there's a shortage of beds, there's a shortage of information, there's a shortage of freedom amongst our physicians. It's disheartening to talk to the number of physicians and nurses that I've talked to that are being told that they have to get vaccinated or they lose their jobs. I went to a rally on the 1st of September up in Calgary to support them. And I think that this is the ultimate point where there is a point of no return, is once the vaccine passport is implemented. Naomi Wolf, Democrat out of the States, has been talking a lot about this. We'll maybe read a little bit about what she has to say about it, as well as Danielle Smith and others. But the bottom line, the Communist Party, the Chinese Communist Party, has put in a social credit system that basically controls their people. And if they're not being the best citizens according to the state and what the state wants you to do, they can basically be penalized. Maybe their internet is slowed down. Maybe they can't go on a holiday to book flights or train rides. And it's quite alarming when you hear the list of things that the Chinese Communist Party can do to control the people, and their behavior, to me, is very alarming and unacceptable, and we can't have it here. Many people are so focused on this crisis that they don't see that the government and the governments around the world are taking this as an opportunity to impose this passport on the people, to control them. And I have to agree with others that once this passport's in place, the next thing that we'll probably be looking at is our CO2 consumption and what we're doing, and whether we're going to be penalized and punished for that, whether our house temperature is 2 degrees too high, or our air conditioning unit is running, or just that you put too many miles on your vehicle. It's just wrong for the state to intrude into our lives and tell us how, where, and what we should do. You have too many children. Whatever it is that those in power believe is wrong and that they are right, they're going to impose it on us if we start this passport system. And Naomi Wolf very much points it out, and she's the CEO of a tech company. She says this platform for the vaccine passport is exactly the same as the platform for the social credit system in communist China. And she's very alarmed about it. She's been speaking out about it. And we need to be aware, very concerned about it. But I'm just going to read, while her picture's up, some of the things that she is saying about what it includes. It includes a rigorous social credit system. It will be one that rewards the discrediting of others with severe penalties for attempting to discredit the wrong people. It's interesting, millions with the 360-degree surveillance camera outside and inside their homes can be monitored. They can find any dissident inside China within minutes. It can collate groups of dissidents, shut down or lock down anyone's ability to buy and sell things. It can open and close opportunities to a person at any part of their future in a microsecond. It can restrict development edits. It can constrain payments provisions from bank credit cards to PayPal and Apple Pay, to keep people in continual lockdown COVID status based on their secret algorithms. She talks about, the cycle threshold and how they can literally, claim anybody to be COVID positive, and there's nothing that you can do about it. But Anyway, she goes on and she says she just said it's already tied into Apple Pay and Google Wallets, and there's no opt-out option. Once you're in, you're stuck there. But there's just some alarming things that go along when the government creates a digital social credit system that is not in the best interest of any of the citizens, and we need to say no. I think there's going to be another rally coming up, that the healthcare, the paramedics, the nurses, the doctors are trying to come together to perform, to gather a rally. They're planning right now in Edmonton. I'll be speaking with some more people tomorrow about it, planning and dating, but to say no to these passports. I firmly believe that it's because of you, the freedom fighters in Alberta, and the support that you've given the Wild Rose Independence Party, that we had our so-called best summer ever from our premier. Is that the pressure that you put on, the polls that showed our strength growing was very concerning, and they backed off. And I think that the most important thing we can do now is to rally around these no more passports. We have to put a stop to this, and the strength in numbers of our party, the rallies, will have a heavy influence on which way Jason Kenney goes. He looks at the polls. They're strategists. They're not it's not about good government or governing or the rule of law or freedom. It's about maintaining and keeping power and getting reelected. And so, like I say, they crunch the numbers. They look at the polls. They see how things are switching, and they switch accordingly. We've seen in the federal election how one of the leaders is moving faster than a bullet train as the polls are coming in and showing where he needs to be. He's just jumping from one hoop to the next to say, oh, I'm there, I'm there, I'm there. These politicians do not deserve your support, in my opinion. And I'll just briefly go on a segue there. To me, there's 2 or 3 critical questions that you need to ask in this upcoming federal election. First and foremost, to me, is always, is the individual running an area a good individual, one that you think that you can trust and believe in? Because I can tell you a lot of nefarious individuals want to get into politics to pad their pockets or else that of their friends. And you need to vet them out carefully and to realize who they are, because we don't want more bad apples into this box. And so number one, know your candidate, screen them, and know that this is someone that you can support. There's a few places in Alberta where I can say there's 2 or 3 excellent candidates that are running. And so, of course, the next thing is to see, well, which political box are they sitting in, and actually scrutinize the policies and what that party stands for. For me, as a Wild Roser, freedom has to be number one. Rule of law, the Constitution, those things all need to be there, and they need to show that they've supported those things in the past, and their track record needs to be freedom fighters, not one that is fighting for a movement and trying to be popular. And so you need to look at that. And then another one is to make sure, do they, for me, do they have national representation? Are they something that's across this country, and do they represent our freedoms, the individual values that we associate with, and are they have a party leader that actually is saying the same things and on the same page as us as Wild Rose Independence Party? And those are things to consider. I urge you to get out and to be involved. There's people out there that I believe that we can and should support, but I have to say that Canada is a sinking ship. It's the Titanic. It's already hit the iceberg. The captains keep saying, oh, it's unsinkable, it's unsinkable. I'm sorry, not only is it sinking, it is corrupt, and it's toxic, and it's poisonous. That's my view of federalism and the way they treat us, and they'll continue to treat us. And we're going to have a great opportunity here on the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd to reach out to Albertans. There's the three campaigns that we're going to have running simultaneously. The number one is to get volunteers to sign up to distribute that brochure in your neighborhoods. Number two is to go and to Donate to our lawn sign campaign. We want, as the other lawn signs are going down, we want the Wild Rose Independence lawn signs going up. And the third one is to donate to our auto dial, where we can reach out to Albertans and ask them that question: do you believe that we can save Alberta? And to reach out and let them know, please go to our website and to take a look. And so, because there's too many that just haven't heard of us yet or are unaware and really feel hopeless in that there's nothing that we can do. The election's going to be over once the polls close in Quebec, and we just watch the results, but we know how they treat us. But I guess let's go to the Alexander Tytler cycle of freedom. And yeah, thank you, David, if you want to put that up there. And let's go through it, because I mean, there's lots of what would I say, debate over Alexander Tytler and whether or not he wrote this, but what's here is profound and I think worth studying. And he just calls this basically the cycle of freedom. And so at the top we have bondage, and people that are in bondage develop faith, and then they develop courage, and then they actually break out and get their liberty. And then from liberty, the people start to focus on material things. They then go into a mode of selfishness, eventually complacency, then apathy, where personal responsibilities are lost. It's not my fault. And freedom is centralized into the government. That they decide where your freedom is. And then the point of no return is when we hit that idea of dependency. And when you look and see what we are becoming dependent on, and again, many people, it wasn't what would I say, a shock to them, but when they started CERB and said we couldn't go to work, we became dependent on government. But I just want to read here, if you'll beg my pardon for this, a paragraph or two that they write about him. But Tyler found that the democratic societies went through this same cycle again and again, that the cycle lasted roughly 200 years each time. The idea states that democracy is temporary in nature. It is difficult to exist as a permanent form of government. A democracy will continue to exist up until the time that the voters discover that they can vote themselves generous gifts from the public treasury. I want to stop and talk about that for a minute, because when Danielle Smith was in my office and she was representing the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses, we talked a lot about this. And again, this is why a new Wild Rose Independence Party constitution will fill in some of these gaps that have allowed democracy to fail. But have you ever seen a time where the federal treasury have spent more money, the provincial treasury have spent more money, and the debt that they're piling on? I mean, boy, when I was discussing this with Danielle back in 2005, I thought it was bad then. We agreed that it was somewhere between between complacency and apathy back then. But anyways, I'm going to go on here. From that moment on, the majority always votes for the candidates who promise the most benefits from the public treasury, with the results that every democracy will finally collapse due to loose fiscal policy, which is always followed by a dictatorship. Tytler said the repeating cycle starts off with a society in bondage. Then it goes through the following sequences. And then, like I say, we got bondage, spiritualization, courage, liberty, abundance, selfishness, complacency, apathy, dependency. This cycle is long and requires that generations pass so that they can forget how they got where they are in their present phase of the cycle. The cycle rarely reverses, though many cycles can appear within the larger cycle. Note that this cycle is mostly referring to the masses. One would have to superimpose the dynamics of how other axes, economics, political, and social, to name a few, intersect with this framework. The other thing that would be different, people can be at different points in the framework model. Phases could somewhat overlap at a single point in time. But anyways, it's just interesting that she put out this letter this last week and talked about the fact that we're past the point of no return, in that the dependency is there. And then she went on and quoted many people in our society that is saying that we have to have these vaccine passports and we need to control the people. But if you want to just take that down now, David, I appreciate that. And so here we are. Are we past the point of no return? Can we save Alberta? I say yes. Will it be easy? No. Is it worth the fight? Absolutely. And that's why I'm here again tonight. And again, I'd encourage you to go to our website, wildrose.party, and to follow through and find where you can volunteer for these things. We'll be coming up with a new website, and on that website we'll have a hookup for just friends of the Wild Rose. I realize that many people don't want to have a membership, but they'd like to stay informed, and we're going to try and do a better job going forward. I don't know how many of you have been and seen the Calgary Bow Center, the largest building in Calgary. It's supposed to have a twin, that was supposed to go up to the south of it. But it was interesting when I was up there in Calgary watching them build it. And maybe my memory's wrong, but it seems like for 2 years, all they did was make a bigger and bigger hole in the ground. And because I visited some business people that were next door to the construction, every time I'd go there and look down, I'd say, wow, how much deeper are they going to go? How much longer is it going to be? And they just kept digging deeper and deeper and deeper. And the reason why is because they needed to get down to bedrock. When you have a building that's as tall and as big as the Bow, it needs to have a really secure and solid foundation. And that's what they were building. It took them 2 years to dig that hole, and then they started going up. And that's my analogy for the party. I mean, we've been building for a year. Many of that has been below the radar screen. Many Albertans have not heard from us. And we've spent that time. We're getting our party, what would I say, on a solid foundation. And it's exciting to me what we're going to see here in the next couple of weeks, that we hope to be fully ready and have our campaign ready to go on the 20th, and that you'll have brochures in your hands and lawn signs, and we'll have funded the auto dial to let Albertans know about us and to go to our website to check us out and see what we represent. And so I encourage you to be patient. I know many of you are upset that we haven't, been moving quick enough, but the last thing we want to do is to build so fast that we have a faulty foundation or we're not ready. And it's a challenge to be building, especially through COVID and many other things, and the federal election that got imposed on us. We have our municipal elections, and I want to encourage everybody, and we'll be talking about that after the federal election, but it's critical that we get some good people in municipal government if we're going to be able to retain our freedoms, because that's where we lose it first, is on the municipal level, where they'll come in and impose it, and again, not stand for us in the community against the province or the federal government. But anyways, with that, I think I want to open it up for questions and see what we can go through. But I'm excited with the campaign and what we can go. But David, are there questions coming in? And if so, what can we do to address some of these?
Hey, Paul.
Yes?
I'm going to get you to tilt your screen a little bit because the questions will cut your head off. So get your head. Yeah, there you go. Okay.
That might be a good thing. Oh boy. I got to get a bigger screen because they seem to be getting smaller all the time. From Steve, does the Wild Rose Nation have a goal in place for getting candidates nominated in time for the next election? Yes, Steve, we do. As leader, what I want to see is a CA get formed. I want to see the board come together. But most important is to grow that constituency association. I would like to see 500 members in a constituency association, a solid board, $5,000 in the bank, and the board saying that, wow, we've got an individual or several individuals who are wanting to run for us, and then we open up for nominations. other political parties, whether it's the provincial board of governor or the leader, is always reaching out and trying to pick and select candidates. I don't believe in that. I believe that if you have a vibrant CA with 500 members, that you are more than capable of electing the person to represent you, who's going to be accountable to you, not to me as the leader, through recall. And it's just critical that we get the support in the CA. It doesn't do any good for me to come in and meet an awesome individual who wants to run, and I'm all gung-ho and say, yeah, let's go for it and open up the nomination when we're going to have 75 or 200 people vote, and they're not part of the team. I want strong, vibrant CAs that are excited about the candidates that want to run, and then to open that nomination up, and from there build the CAs. But really, and again, I would love to see by the end of the year that we have 3 or 4 CAs that have reached those goals and have got the 500 members and the $5,000 in the bank, and come to the provincial board and say, we'd like to open up nominations. The provincial board has hired a company, though, that will do the vetting of all individuals, a criminal background check, and whatnot on the individuals to make sure they're solid individuals. And then the members in the CA will be the ones to vote and to choose and to pick who they want to represent them from their constituency association. But appreciate that, Steve. Great question. Hope that answered everything. Callie, do you worry that talking about vaccines, masks, and passports too much is taking away from the fundamental reason behind the Alberta independence movement? Callie, that's a great question, and people ask me that all the time. And I have to say, my biggest concern right now, are we going to have the freedom to vote in 2023? And the more freedoms that we lose now, the tougher it's going to be. And vaccine passports are a critical issue. So I'm going to continue speaking out against it. And maybe we'll lose some support right now. But I think that the wisdom and the understanding will come through vibrantly before the next election. And people will realize that, oh, we were the ones that were standing to protect your freedoms right from the start. Though right now there may be, that mob mentality to force people into compliance, but it's wrong, and we just can't accept that, or to turn a blind eye, or to think that it doesn't affect Albertans. So it is about being a sovereign nation. It's about clawing back the powers from Ottawa, having our own police force, our own pension plan, immigration policy. All of those things are important. Collecting our own revenue here in Alberta, our own environmental regulations that will govern us. But boy, if we've lost our freedoms before then, that'll be a problem. But we need to stay focused and take that autonomy that we need to exercise to show Albertans that we need to be independent. So appreciate that, Callie, and we will try and make sure that everything is on the table for people to realize that it's not just about a vaccine passport or masks. Rob, any chance of getting Barnes and Lowen on board with the Wild Rose? That would give WIPA a voice in the legislature. Now I'm going to have to put on my glasses here. Brokering a deal there would move things forward big time. Well, Rob, I've talked to both Barnes and Lowen, and I have to say that Todd Lowen's goal right now is purely to get rid of Jason Kenney. And Drew Barnes has said that he is not going to be making any decisions or doing anything until after the AGM in November for the UCP. I understand what you're saying. I've talked to them many times, but they do not catch the vision of the importance of independence and to stand up to Ottawa. And so it is what it is, but there's other MLAs that I'm talking to, and I'm hopeful that some of them, again, with this new lockdown and what happens, to say that they can no longer support Jason and want to move out and sit as independents and then run for a nomination in one of our constituencies. But excellent question, and our doors are always open to any MLAs. And if there's any out there that are watching and I haven't spoken to you, don't hesitate to send me an email and your contact, and we will visit with you right away. But just to Paul Hinman at wildrosenation.com. But anyways, appreciate that. Steve, Global News came out with an article about O'Toole is going to make vaccine passports mandatory. So much for conservatives. Very disappointed, Steve, and that's what I was talking about. Some politicians, they're purely looking at the polls, and they just jump from one poll to the next, and we don't know who they are or what they represent. And people need to be aware of that. But yes, he's come out in support of that. He's also this last week flipped on the gun registry and the order in council that Justin has put out. Very disappointing on both accounts. Is there another one there for us, Dave?
I am looking for more questions, so give me a second here.
Okay. I'll do the rare thing myself and I'll start looking through there. But I'm not a multitasker, so I avoid trying to look and read over there because I get distracted. Tom, how would an eventual PPC victory affect the Alberta? Well, I imagine, not sure what AWP is. Well,
I'm sure it's the Alberta Wild Rose Party. I think it's
okay.
us.
Okay, thank you. Haven't seen that acronym before for us. Always something new. Well, I just don't see what any of the parties can offer for us, but I will say that what the PPC is offering is good for Canada. And again, many times when people separate, whether it's in business or in a family, we don't wish animosity on anyone. And for me, what Maxime Bernier is offering Canadians, and especially here in Alberta, is the truth. It's about freedom. It's about respect. You know, it's about responsibility, and it's about fairness. He wants to change equalization. He wants pipelines. He's going to fight against the Paris Accord, against the United Nations. You know, last campaign, it was that they were corrupt and unfit to be there. And he hasn't changed his campaign at all from last time to this time that I'm aware of. And so would there be anything better than having 25 PPC candidates from Alberta to speak up in Ottawa? I think it would be awesome. But anyways, I'll leave that to the members. If they can find what they believe to be better representation, good for them. But what Maxime Bernier and the People's Party of Canada and the candidates that I've met are incredible. And I would hope that they are the voice that would represent Alberta for the next 3 or 4 years. How would Wild Rose manage to get message out there when so much of the mainstream media either ignores this or it's mischaracterizes it? Seems like the battle is and will be against both the UCP and the media. Mitchell, that's 100% right. And that's why our campaign of Can We Save Alberta is about our membership and about people going door to door in their neighborhood. We need to drop off hundreds of thousands of brochures at the doorsteps of our neighbors and for them to get to see us. We need to have lawn signs up that are all over on people's property showing Wild Rose Independence Party. And, you know, have you had enough? That this is incredibly important. And the other one is the auto dial that we can dial out to Albertans and let them know about our website and who we are and how to get hold of us, whether it's the phone or the website or email. And to me, this is our challenge. We need to raise the money that we can go out and to put these campaigns to our members, and the boots on the ground will do that, because the Main Street media and the UCP and the NDP are going to be vicious and they have millions of dollars to attack us with. But our message is true. When I speak to Albertans, many of them, oh, I didn't know about this. This is so exciting, so refreshing. I didn't know we could do anything. And again, I'm going to go on a segue here about this being a political problem. And I've said this before, I'm going to say it again tonight. You know, I don't think there's a better place on the planet than the Dominican Republic and Haiti to just see how much trouble and turmoil and suffering politics play in people's lives. Here's a little small Caribbean island that's divided by a fence, one being Haiti, where just a corrupt regime, oppression of the people, there is no freedoms, and then the Dominican Republic on the east half of the island, and their life is measurably better. And that's just the way it is. Politics, as much as people don't want to talk about it or be part of it, is the major influence in the quality of our life for citizens around the world. And we here in Alberta have an opportunity to be the beacon of what a good democracy is. And again, when you talk about the Tytler cycle of freedom, it's interesting in there. He always talks about democracy, but what I feel is important is a constitutional democracy that recognizes the supremacy of God and the rule of law, and knows that the purpose and the reason why we form government is to protect the individual's rights, their life, their freedom, their property, and their pursuit of happiness. And that needs to be the function of it. There's just no way that a municipal, a provincial, or federal government should be able to strip our freedoms away the way they do, and our Constitution isn't solid enough. And again, many of you realize that those who have lost their freedoms, who have been punished, who have been put in jail, have not had their day in court. I had the privilege of being in Calgary this last weekend and visiting Fairview Baptist with Pastor Tim Stevens. And I was amazed, but Pastor James Coates was down as a visitor that weekend, and I got to meet both of them and speak with them. But it's just unbelievable that these people are being imprisoned and put to jail. But it is interesting that if you go through the release from Alberta Health Services, or from our chief medical officer, on page 7, it says that churches are exempt from these policies. And so again, because of Albertans that have supported these pastors and have supported the Wild Rose, the Alberta government said that, you know what, we're not going to impose these lockdowns and these mandates on churches and people going to worship. And that's a wonderful plus. And that's why I say we haven't lost the battle yet. We need to keep fighting. But anyways, hope that answers your question. Rob again. Where did the UCP go wrong? Was it Kenny or the old PCs inside the fence that ruined it? Doesn't seem to be any original Wild Rose type mentality in the UCP now. Well, Rob, I think that you and anybody can analyze that as good as anybody. Bottom line, I think that we were bamboozled. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I never had such enthusiasm and excitement for elected leader. I thought that I'd never be involved in politics again. And with my great expectations have come my biggest disappointment. I will say that I've been involved enough and been up at the legislature and met enough federal politicians and things that I find being elected and the desire to be elected for many is as intoxicating as the most lethal drugs out there, and that once they've got that taste of it, they'll do anything to keep it. And it's also amazed me too that the hidden agendas that so many people have when they get elected, they have other ideas that they want. And it certainly seems to me that Premier Kenny is not only a federalist but a globalist. And shame on you, fooled me once. Shame on me if you fool me twice. They need to be one and done. They have not served Alberta's best interest. They certainly didn't do anything for job security. They didn't do anything to stand up to Ottawa. They've done nothing to enhance our pipelines. And it's been just, to me, 3 strikes and you're out. You need to go. And we need to elect a Wild Rose independence government. And we need to elect Wild Rose people that are accountable through recall. We need to have citizens initiative referendums where people can bring things to be voted on by the people when politicians won't do it. But we have a great opportunity. That there's enough history, and we've studied it enough that we know where to plug the holes. And it's funny, I was talking to somebody this week about plugging the holes, and there's nothing more what would I want to say, discouraging than being the little boy with your thumb in the dike, hoping that you can stop it. The dike, the thumb in the dike doesn't stop it. The problem's on the other side of the wall. And like I say, this is a political problem. These people need to be turfed from office, and we need to put in people that are accountable to people and are there to focus and serve the people and protect the people's individual rights. But anyways, great question, but only Jason and the UCP know it's a rotten, rat-infested ship that never should have been brought back up. And We've got it, and boy, we're paying big time for the problem of it. For Vincent, it seems that everyone is silent when it comes to getting the government to disclose the medical process that is in place to treat people with COVID. What is the protocol that is in place? Well, it's interesting. I just read today that in the European Union that they've got out a new protocol there, and they're actually treating with ivermectin. I hope that that's going to spill over here, but that's been one of the more disappointing things is the censorship that has gone on. The doctors who have been wanting that have done their research and have read the research papers and seen the protocol for treatments, and yet they've been told that that they can't speak about it, they can't do anything about it, that their license to practice will be revoked. Intimidation is terrible. I think that here in Alberta that we should have had the double blind tests going on. I know Albertans would want to sign on and participate in that. And we need to have those numbers and the results here in Alberta. We should have, but the government continues to, for whatever reason, to me it's corrupt, that there isn't an open dialogue and looking around the world at what is and isn't working, because they will not address a treatment at this time, but yet there's many countries and many research papers that show that there's a lot of optimism. I think Peter McCullough down in Texas feels that 80% of the deaths could have been prevented. Dr. Perry Corey from California also pleaded with Congress, just read the paper here and then allow people to repurpose some of these very safe drugs. But it's very disappointing to see how the governments continue to censor and to control the dialogue about treatment for COVID. Any talks to start with the Maverick Party? Well, Maverick Party is an interesting situation. I don't know how many of you have been following some of the articles in the Western Standard, but their energy policies seem to be about CO2 and the Paris Accord. They're not, that I can see, standing up for freedom, or at least their leader has spoken out on some of these areas. And they, in their mandate, say they're not going to work with any provincial parties. I've met some great candidates that are very much in line with us, and that's why I say go out to meet the candidates and see what they stand for. But the Maverick Party is enthusiastic, but I'm not sure what their end goal is. They talk about 2 tracks. I just don't believe there's any fair deal. It's great to have someone that at least represents Alberta and is not going to be a puppet to the leader of a federal party. So there's lots of positives. And I just encourage you to study and decide who will represent you best in your area, and then vote and support those individuals. But thanks for the question. Betty, when is the next provincial election? Not soon enough, I know, but wondering on the date. Well, the last one was in May, and the next one should be well, it can be anywhere from March to June of 2023 is the way the legislation is set up right now. And I can tell you, a year ago, that seemed like not that it was a long ways away, but too far. And now with how fast things are changing and moving, you have to wonder, how what's our debt going to be like? What are our freedom going to be like? What's the economy going to be like? What's the oil industry going to be like? What's the beef industry going to be like? It's scary to see how fast things are changing, and the attack on Alberta and Alberta industries and our way of life. But we can and will, as we grow our numbers and show our strength, certainly slow this down. And let's be ready, and please sign up and volunteer to get these pamphlets out to people in your neighborhood so that we can slow it down. Just like I say, it's going to be strength in numbers. Jason Kenney's looking at our donations that show up every quarter. He's looking at our membership numbers. And again, the polling that shows our support. That this is how we will keep Jason from pulling us off and being part of well, so many federal programs that are to our detriment. That just transition is just disgusting to me. There's nothing just about it. It's a transition into dependency. It's a transition into chaos. It's funny. I was up in Red Deer last week, and I was pulling out of the hotel, and Tesla had their charging station there. I should put the picture up, but there was 2 cars parked in there. Um, the gentlemen were sitting in their cars waiting for it to charge, but the infrastructure for just charging 5 cars was massive. These individuals that want to transform and go to this, I don't think they've even thought for a second of the infrastructure and what it would take to have 40 cars in the street, in the homes that need to be charged. Our electrical system isn't capable of that. It's comical how many of these actually have diesel generators there to produce the electricity to charge these cars going forward. The mining that would need to be taking place to just get the rare earth metals that are needed for these so-called renewable energies. There's just a complete disconnect on the full cost, if you want to call the full cycle cost of their green technology. It's not very green when you look at the full cycle and see where it starts with the mining, to where you dispose of the battery and all of the equipment at the end of life. Yet that they can look at a little narrow strip right in here and say, oh, but it's so good for the environment. Sorry, we have to look at the full life cycle of all projects, and they failed to do that. But anyways, I apologize. I get going on a lot of these things, and they're near and dear. But Norm, passports are the same platform as the Chinese Communist Party's social credit system. If we accept that, there is no going back. What are your thoughts on this, Paul? Well, Norm, you must have joined us a little bit late, because I actually read quite a bit about it, but you're 100% right. This isn't about health. This is about control, and the Chinese platform for their social credit is the exact same platform that the vaccine passport will be based on. And I can assure you that once government has that power and that ability, it will be used and abused in every other sector that they're pushing. And the first one could easily be on our CO2 consumption. If you have too many kids and you're driving them around to, whether it's soccer or hockey or baseball or whatever they're participating in, gymnastics through the winter, they can say, oh my goodness, this person's using too much, and could turn off our credit cards and put bad credit on us. But it's very scary. We need to stand up as Albertans and say no, unacceptable. And again, there'll be some rallies coming up here that I'll share with our members and on our website. Thinking right now, they're looking at the 17th of September in Edmonton. I was at one on the 1st of September in Calgary. But we need to say no to these passports. They're evil, and there's nothing good about them. That this is definitely a wolf in sheep's clothing that will bite our heads off. But thanks for the question, Norm. Rob, please speak to Alberta's natural resources other than oil and how Albertans can thrive under independence. Well, there's nothing that I enjoy more than driving off the QE2. Even the QE2 is beautiful, but whether you go to the east or the west, Alberta is agricultural country. And yes, we see oil rigs here and there, but our other natural resources are phenomenal. I don't know why, and again, it's this disconnect from reality. If we're going to shut down because of the globalists who say protein is bad and that we shouldn't be feeding food to beef, to cattle, they don't understand. We have just millions of acres and just thousands of farm families that raise beef. It's a great protein product. It enhances the quality of life for people. And that's what we have in abundance of, it is grass, that there isn't anything else that we can do on that. The forestry is another one that the number of trees that get burnt every year, and that we don't have a better management system to where we're actually building fire guards every 25 or 30 miles and growing those trees, whether it's a 30 or 40-year life cycle, and harvesting them and creating fire barricades every 30 or 40 miles. There's just a lot of things that we can do, but the most important thing is to have a constitution that allows I want to see the ingenuity of man to develop our resources in ways that perhaps we haven't thought of. But we can't have it under the control of government who says what we can and can't do. But those are the two big ones: is forestry and agriculture, and then there's some smaller ones, and there's certainly just the resources of the people is the most valuable one, and the education that we have and the research when it comes to engineering, when it comes to healthcare. We really have a wonderful opportunity as a sovereign nation to open up and allow investments to come in here, to be the entrepreneurs of the world. And that's what freedom allows, is for people to think freely and then develop freely. And I'm just excited to think what we can and will do here in Alberta. And whether that's even coming up, when McMaster University lost their medical isotope equipment, I was urging the Stelmach government back in 2007, 2008 that we should have had medical isotopes going at the University of Alberta, but it was negative, and they just weren't interested in that. But we just need the freedom there where government isn't picking and choosing, and the individuals will, and they'll be attracted to Alberta because of that freedom and the free market. But excellent question, and I hope that answers it on our other resources. Okay, C, the majority of Albertans don't want to separate right now. I am concerned stressing separation will scare people away. Well, that's an excellent question, and you're right, the majority don't. But what we need to do is have autonomy, and that's what the Wild Rose Independence Party is all about. Get elected, and we have that autonomy where we'll have our own police force, we'll create our own Alberta Revenue Agency, we'll have our own Alberta pension plan, we'll have our employment insurance, we'll have our own environmental laws that will govern us in the direction that we need to go. And after we have exercised our full autonomy and showing Albertans what a vibrant economy that we can have, we'll be allowing Albertans to vote on whether or not they want to be a sovereign country. And I would argue for those people who says, well, I can't vote for an independence party. Well, if you think that you're going to get a better deal and stop the problem, you're fooling yourself. That if you want to keep Canada together, I would argue that the best thing that you could do is vote for the Wild Rose Independence Party, because perhaps the rest of Canada might actually look at us seriously and realize that they need to change the Constitution and the equalization and decentralize the central government and all of its policies that it's pushing on us. And so if you're a loyalist and you want to stay in Canada, I would say join the Wild Rose Independence Party, and we'll form government, and then Canadians will have an opportunity of saying we need to address their concerns or not. But our concerns will not be addressed if the UCP or the NDP are elected back into the legislature. But I appreciate the question. I hope that answers it and sheds new light that it doesn't matter which side of the debate you're on. The Wild Rose Independence Party is the vehicle that's going to get us and allow us to have a prosperous future. Stephen, what do we gain by replacing the RCMP, which is contracted by the Alberta government, with a local Alberta provincial police force? Well, another excellent question. First and foremost is that we'll have control here in the province and not coming from Ottawa on telling the police what to do. A good example is I was in High River in 2013 when the RCMP busted into the homes, the empty homes in High River after the flood, and confiscated guns. Here in Alberta, we could have an outrage and say we want to stop those things. I also want to have elected civilian oversight of the police force, not politicians and not bureaucrats. We need elected civilian oversight, and those civilians to be accountable to the people through recall. We need a police force that's actually protecting people, protecting our property. It's just terrible how many problems that we have, and yet we don't have the police force to address those problems. It's difficult, and I know that they work, and they in rural Alberta, the RCMP go into town council and they ask them what their concerns are and what they can do, and they report to them. But it's not good enough. And again, we need to separate the police from the bureaucrats and the politicians. I just can't believe, and again, I don't know if any of you saw the new video out by the Justice Center, but that 10-minute video of the police brutality and the enforcement and the $13 million worth of fines that have been handed out to Canadians, it's unacceptable. We need to change the current system. We actually need a police force that is accountable to the people and a government that's accountable to the people. And we won't have that if Ottawa is the ones who decide what the police will and will not do in way of protecting Albertans. But I hope that answers your questions. It's a fairly lengthy one, and we could go on a lot about the police force and what we need to do to improve it. But thank you for that. Norm, Paul, what is the odds to get a non-confidence vote or shutting government down now? Well, I assume that maybe you're talking about the provincial government. There's many people that say that there's some good MLAs inside the UCP. I wish that they would stand up and say no as these draconian rules and regulations and policies come out. None of them, well, I shouldn't say none of them, 17 of them signed a letter saying that they weren't happy with them. Most of them retracted and went back. Todd Lowen, as you know, just spoke out and said that Jason Kenney needs to go, and he was the one who got turfed. And again, the other MLAs voted on that. Drew Barnes, was walking the fence, and he was kind of caught off guard that he thought that he had his foot far enough on the fence that he was safe, but he got turfed out. But I just don't see it. Certainly would encourage the MLAs to do that, but I just don't see that happening. But it would be nice for Alberta to have a non-confidence vote and bring this government down, because it's truly been a disaster. Well, David, it looks like we've taken up the hour. It always goes really quick, but I just want to thank the viewers for coming on, thank the questions. Please go to our website, wildrose.party, wildrosenation.com. I don't know if that's gone live yet, but in the next couple of days, soon, and that'll help us in our campaign. But this is our opportunity to share what we know is the path to prosperity, and to share it with other Albertans to realize that the status quo has to go. Many people, their number one concern is that we can't split the vote. We can't afford to have the NDP in. Well, if the Wild Rose does not exist and give Albertans an option to actually pick for good government, the NDP are going to win the next provincial election. They're way ahead in the polls. They're raising more money, and the UCP have abdicated their responsibility as conservatives. So when people tell you that, say, well, the Wild Rose is our only option to actually stop the NDP from getting in. But God bless each and every one of you. We'll continue to fight for freedom and justice, and I look forward to carrying on that battle with you. Take care, and we'll see you soon.